Yeah, fuck you been on? Fuck you been on? What you been on? What you been on? I've been on holiday. Pay for the team with my DNA. I've been on getting the 92. Predator making a one of you. I've been on coming through with a 2-2 and I'm fucking up with an A. I've been on new tricks with the 2-6 and I'm killing it with the game. Really been bad like a new grad coming out of it with a first. I've been on bringing a hearse, taking these niggas to church. I've been on fucking the 10. I've been on fucking again. I've been on many like a mother family when I'm rolling with businessmen. Fuck you been on? Fuck you been on? Fuck you been on? What you been on? What you been on? What you been on? I've been doing this. Went with the crew in this. Nah. Fuck you been on? Fuck you been on? Fuck you been on? I've been on cutting the middle, man. Buying in bulk and I never win. I've been on getting the Venador. Stopping and getting it with the law. I've been on freaking in public. She taking risks and she love it. I've been on blowing the budget. Look at the bill, say fuck it. I've been on long drive with sativa high, so she touching my genitals. I've been on bad hoes with an attitude, but she winning ahead of them. Pump me that V12 to a new city. New chain cost 250. New braid look too pretty. New day got 2 milli. Fuck you been on? Fuck you been on? Fuck you been on? What you been on? What you been on? What you been on? I've been doing this. Went with the crew in this. Nah. Fuck you been on? Fuck you been on? Fuck you been on? Woo!
Hey, fuck you dancing for you looking lame as hell. Facts. For this bitch on time cause I don't take no L. Facts. Met this white bitch on Omegle, she said ASL. Facts. I don't do relationships, they lame as hell. Facts. One bitch all I need for the week. If it's over, then it's over, bitch, it doesn't bother me. Smoking green like Louise, and my rack's so fucking big. Every time I check and see, I think that money is obese, it's fat, for real. Big money. It's huge, it's like 20,000, 30,000 flights that I can't count. It's a big amount of money in that. It's big, it's nice. Who the fuck taught you to dance like that? Who taught you to dance? Who the fuck taught you to dance like that? Facts. Who taught you to dance? Who the fuck taught you to dance like that? Huh? And where you buying pants like that? Huh? Facts. Your ass too big, I don't got hands like that. Facts. Thick, but I'll throw money if you dance like that. Huh?
Hey everybody, happy Wednesday! Happy beginning of our live streaming week. How's everybody doing out there in the wilds of the internet today? It is apparently a balmy 66 degrees Fahrenheit in Alberta today. I am definitely... Was it that warm here today? Like, I don't actually know that it was that warm here in Dallas today. Hi, Pam! Welcome in. Let's see. Sorry, I just... Yeah, right now it's 61. Okay. So, how is it that Canada was warmer than us? Alright. Okay, so anyway. So, yeah, Lori had a beautiful day. We actually had a really solidly pretty day here in Dallas ourselves. Not 66 degrees, but 60-something degrees, which was a nice change from yesterday, which was... cold and gray and blustery. Oh my god, yesterday was super windy. So, welcome to our Wednesday evening tutorial stream where we are going to do this evening creating charms from found objects. So, this is a little bit more of a freeform stream than some of my tutorials, but I'm basically going to focus on, you know, if you find things, just random things, items, and you want to turn them into accessories that you can put on jewelry, how do you do that? So I'm going to give you a couple of tips and tricks, techniques for how do you actually make that happen. So as far as tools and supplies go, this one's a little bit more freeform because it really depends on what you have. So, and I did, goodness gracious, I said to myself, you need to get wire before you start the tutorial. Ha! I have wire. There's wire in my workspace. So, anyway, so things that are helpful in turning found objects into charms, including but not limited to wire. Wire is super helpful for a variety of things. In this case, I have a button that I'm going to turn into a charm. That's what I'm going to use my wire for. Jump rings. And jump rings are, of course, rings that are just turned around and touch each other but are not overlapping like split rings do. When you're using jump rings, you want to make sure that you are using jump rings that are fairly thick. So 20, 18, even 16 gauge jump rings. These, I believe, are 18. The thicker your jump ring is, the stronger and sturdier it's going to be on whatever you use to attach it. So jump rings, and I just have a little handful of them here. When you're making charms from found objects, it's like there's no set supply list here. It's just kind of, you know, you gotta have a bunch of stuff, and then eventually, you know, you'll be able to turn everything you want to into a charm. So if I'm being non-specific as far as tools and supplies, that's because you never really know what you're gonna need until you're doing a particular piece. But continuing on with things you may need to create charms from found objects, in addition to wire, jump rings, these are really, really helpful. These are called screw eyes. So they're basically just a little eye that is on a threaded post. I don't know if the camera's letting you see that that's threaded, but that's threaded. So you can basically add a little bit of glue and screw this into either a hole that you have drilled or a somewhat soft thing like, say, my champagne cork here, and that will give you an eye to which you can attach a jump ring to make a charm. Also head pins. We're going to be doing some drilling of holes. So if you've drilled a hole in a piece, then a head pin, which is this. It's a long stick of wire with a little head at the end. It's definitely something that's helpful. And you may, if this is something you do a lot, have other things that you find that you need. But for tonight's tutorial, we're going to see what we can do with wire, jump rings, screw eyes, and head pins. And what am I going to make charms out of during this evening's tutorial? I have a die, just a regular die. I have a mahjong tile. I've got a champagne cork, a little bottle, a key, and a bead. So I'm going to take all of these objects and I'm going to turn them into charms in this evening's tutorial. Now, as far as tools go, of course, your regular hand tools are going to be super helpful in this. So you've got your chain nose pliers as the flat ones. You've got your round nose pliers. Those are the ones with the round and pointy noses. You've got your wire cutters. Now, if you're doing a lot of found object work, it's going to be to your benefit to invest in a pair of heavy duty wire cutters, which are not these that I'm holding in my hands. Okay, these are fine wire cutters, which are good for your general wires, you know, anything up to 18 or 16 gauge. But if you're going to be chopping, say, the shanks off of buttons, having just a pair of wire cutters that say came from the hardware store that you really don't care that much about is really going to be helpful for you, because I was just having this discussion with a client the other day, is your really nice wire cutters, the ones that you pay a lot of money for, like these, you don't want to use those for utilitarian things like chopping the shanks off of buttons. So again, this is why if you do a lot of found object work, having a more utilitarian, less expensive, less refined wire cutter is going to help you. Also, if you do a lot of found object work, having a jeweler saw is also going to help you, and that's not something that I'm going to delve into in this evening's tutorial, but sometimes when you've got something that you need to chop off of something else, sometimes even a wire cutter isn't, sturdy enough to do it, so a saw is going to be your friend. Also, speaking of tools for this evening's tutorial, a flex shaft or a Dremel, some kind of power drilling tool, is definitely something that we are going to use tonight. Your Dremel or flex shaft, of course, you can put different bits into, so in addition to drilling, it can also be a sanding tool, it can be a grinding tool. Power tools, seriously, incredibly helpful when it comes to found object jewelry. So, that being said, let's just go ahead and jump into how do we make charms out of these found objects. So we're going to start with the easiest, which is going to be our key. Okay, so you got something like a key, or a lock plate. Anyway, you have something that has a hole already in it. Bonus for you, it's got a hole. You don't have to make a hole. Woot! So all we have to do is we have to utilize this hole to hang this thing from whatever we want to hang it from. This is super easy. This is where our nice heavy duty 18 gauge jump rings come into play. So let's talk for just a sec about opening jump rings. So 2 chain nose pliers or a chain nose and a flat nose pliers are going to be your best friends when opening jump rings. Now, this is a chain nose, this is a flat nose. This is another discussion I had with a client last week about the difference between these 2 pliers. Okay, so your chain nose are best for your general grabbing, holding, and smashing, but also, anytime you've got to smash, tuck, hold, or anything of that sort in a small area, because they've got a very tiny tip. Your flat nose are pretty much just for holding, and they're great when you're doing something like opening a jump ring, because they've got a lot of grip at the ends of their little noses there. So when I've got a chain nose and I'm opening a jump ring, I always want to grab with the side of my chain nose like this, but when I've got a flat nose, I can actually grab with the nose of my flat nose, and it's got a fair amount of grip because it is, once again, flat. So that's what flat nose are good for, is they're good for grabbing things that you really need a lot of grip on. I'm going to twist my jump ring open, drop my little key on there, and then twist it closed. Now remember, when you are closing a jump ring, okay, this is not good. This is no bueno. This is not how to close a jump ring. Look at that. Look at that giant gap. You could drive a freaking freight train through that gap. So when you're closing a jump ring, you want to make sure that you close it so that there is no airspace between the 2 sides of the jump ring. That is an appropriately closed jump ring. So this, literally at this point, if I wanted to, I could string this onto a chain and it would hang out and last on my chain just fine. Okay, Now that I'm looking at it on the camera, you can see that that's not really well aligned. Yeah, well, you know, we're just gonna fix that a little bit with our pliers and stuff and things. But it may not have been pretty, but it was closed. Just saying. Okay, this is slightly better. Alright, so there we go. So that's a little bit more aligned. It is closed. And so this I can put onto a chain or a cord, and it's going to stay on there. The chances that I am going to lose it are very slim. So if this is my, you know, key to my super secret spy safe deposit box where I'm, you know, holding all of my fake passports and guns and, you know, $2,000 worth of cash to get out of the country. I'm good. I'm safe with this particular jump ring. Also, if anybody knows that this is the key to some safe deposit box that has $2,000 worth of cash, let me know, because I really use that. So that's the simplest and easiest way to make a charm from a found object, is if it has a hole already in it, use a good heavy duty jump ring, and there you go. Okay, now continuing on to, we're gonna do drilling and gluing last. Okay, so next is going to be beads, and we've done this. So Ace asked, would putting some hypo glue on the closure of the jump ring make it any more secure? The answer is no. There are myths out there in the beading world, and they don't all involve the Loch Ness Monster. No. Your best bet when you're using a jump ring to secure the closure is just to use a heavy duty jump ring and do a good job of closing it completely. Glue is not, most of the glues that we use are not, with the exception of epoxy, are not designed to stick to metal, and honestly it's not really going to help any more than just taking the time and the effort to close your ring securely. As long as you do that and you're using an appropriately heavy ring, you should be totally fine. Okay, so now let's talk about how do we make a charm out of a bead. This one is pretty elementary, as far as those of you who have been hanging out on the Beading Dream stream for a while. Of course, if it is a bead, it has a hole, and if it has a hole, then you use this. This is called a head pin. This is a piece of wire with a flat head at the bottom, and that is what you're going to put through the hole of your bead, like so. Notice that the head stops your bead from falling off the bottom of the pin, and then we're just going to do a basic wire wrap loop. This is something that we've done a lot on the Beading Dream stream. As most of you know, it's one of my favorite things to do. But seriously, like if you've got random beads, whether they be vintage beads, new beads, gemstone beads, you know, plastic beads, you know, glass beads, whatever, it's nice to know how to take a bead and turn it into a charm. So I've got my labradorite bead here, I've got my head pin through my bead, and I'm going to use the basic wire wrapped loop technique to turn this into a charm. So I've got my round nose pliers, I'm gripping my wire at the top of my bead, and I'm going to push my wire away from me, rotate my pliers, bring it back up over the top towards me, rotate my pliers, and push my wire under my pliers again to make this. This is a completed loop. It's completed except for the wrapping. This is what we call on the Beading Dream stream our lady with a scarf, like so. So again, that's a completed loop that just needs to be closed. Now at this point, if I were going to link this onto a piece of chain or a component or something like that, I could do that right now, or I can just wrap it up, make it a charm, and link it on with a jump ring later, just like I did with my little key here, because now I've created a hole in the top of this piece. So to wrap this up, I'm just going to hold with my chain nose pliers. Chain nose pliers are your grabbing, holding, and smashing pliers. I could hold with my flat nose as well. I tend to default to my chain nose just because if you're going to pick one of those two pliers, your chain nose is a little bit more useful. And then I'm going to take this straight wire and I'm going to wrap it around, and I'm going to go right at the base of my loop, and I'm just going to start coiling my wire down my coiling my wire that is what I would call my scarf down this stick of bare wire all the way until I get to my bead. Alright, so that's your basic wire wrapped loop, and that is technique number 2 for creating a charm out of a found object. Now this extra wire here, obviously I don't need that, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. Now when you're trimming your wire, please pay attention to where your wire cutters are, because it's really easy to inadvertently go like that. The problem with that is as soon as I compress these wire cutters, I'm going to completely bisect the loop that I just made. That is not the goal. So when you're cutting, make sure that you are not cutting the loop that you just made, that you are only cutting the part that you want to remove from your piece. And then this pokey stabby part here, the easiest way to tuck that in is to actually hold that loop and then go in with your, yeah, right, Lori? Seriously, it's always so sad every time I see a student do that, though, because it's like, and invariably, as soon as I start to say it, they've already done it. It's like they've already gone like chop. And you're like, well, now your loop is a half a loop, and now you need to start over again. So I tucked my little piece in. And so if you hold your loop, then your wire isn't going to spin. It's going to make it a little easier to hold your pokey stabby and tuck it in. So that's option number 2 or technique number 2 for how to make charms from a found object if your found object happens to be a bead. Technique number 3 is for buttons. Okay, so raise your hand in your own individual space. Have you ever found a cool button that you want to turn into a charm? And for me, the answer is absolutely yes. But of course, if you just attach a jump ring, and we're assuming for the purposes of this tutorial that you have a shank button. So a shank button is a button that looks like this, that has a little loop on the back. So if you just were to attach a jump ring to your shank button, you're gonna get a charm that hangs like this, which is fine and dandy, except for the pretty part of the button is the front. So this is a fairly easy way to make a charm out of a shank button using wire. So I'm going to start with some 20 gauge wire. You do need something that's a little bit sturdy, so 20 gauge wire is a good gauge. If it's a really big button, you could even do 18. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to grab my wire. I'm just going to turn a little loop in my wire like so. You want that loop ideally to be big enough that when you thread your wire up through the shank of your button, that loop does not come through. So obviously I did not do a good job of that. It's too small. Let's make it bigger. Okay, so try again. Take 2. Up through the shank of your button. Haha, much better. Okay, so now I've made a loop that will not go up through the shank of my button, and that is what I want. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of hold that in place, and I'm going to start wrapping my wire around the shank of that button. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start creating kind of an outward building spiral, and you can be as precise or as imprecise as you want in this. Obviously at the moment I'm being fairly imprecise. It's not the prettiest spiral ever, but that's totally fine because it's doing what I need it to do, which is making kind of a base on the back of my button. Alright, and then whenever your spiral has expanded to the point where it's approximately at the edge of your button, now we can go ahead and make a loop. So you can make a loop either in the same plane as the button or in the opposite plane. I'm going to go ahead and go with the same plane in this particular instance. I'm just going to wrap it round my round nose pliers, so I've got a nice little loop there. And then I'm going to anchor it off by going back. Oh wow, fail. This is what happens when you're trying to watch the camera and the actual project at the same time. So yeah, I'm going to go back and I'm just going to anchor it once or twice round my shank, kind of in with that spiral that I've been making, so that the goal here is when this gets pulled upon, not horrendously hard, but just gently pulled upon. We don't want this to kind of unspool, which we have succeeded in. So now I'm just going to trim my end and grab my chain nose and just make sure that gets tucked in like so. Okay, and so then I can take this and attach this with a jump ring to whatever project I might want. Okay, so we've got so far 3 techniques for making charms from found objects. None of them thus far have involved power tools. We're gonna have one more that doesn't involve power tools, and then we're gonna get with the drilling. So we've got jump rings for anything that has a hole in it, like a key. We've got head pins for anything that's got a hole in it, like a bead, and then we've got wire for something like a button that has an aperture on the back, which isn't ideal necessarily for holding it, but is again a place where we can attach wire to then create a hanging loop. Okay, so now we're gonna go to some screw eyes and glue. Okay, so this is where the fact that I definitely have a fetish for little bottles. I'm admitting this to the internet, so your little bottles can be empty, or in my case I'm gonna fill my little bottle with crystals, because what fun is a little bottle if you don't fill it with something? Okay, so I've got my little bottle. So little bottles are really fun as charms because you can fill them with so many things. You can fill them with little crystal beads like I've done. You can fill them with little cut stones. So if somehow you've come into possession, you know, of a small parcel of cut, you know, cubic zirconias or white topazes or sapphires or whatever, and you don't have the time, knowledge, and or patience to actually set them all, you know, you can throw them in a little bottle and they're really cute all together like that. You could put broken beads in your little bottle, things, you know, that wouldn't necessarily be useful in any other context. You could do, you know, a particular grouping of gemstones as far as like metaphysical properties. You could make a love bottle, you could make a luck bottle, you could make a I really want to not murder everyone around me bottle. Like there's a lot of things you can do for this, but and of course little bottles you can get all over the place. You can get them on eBay, Amazon, you can get them at the craft store. You can, you know, find them in miscellaneous lots of things. So there's a lot of places to get little bottles and a lot of things you can do with them. So one of the easiest ways to make them into a charm is twofold. Number one, you want to glue in the cork. This is something that I learned from Heather with her, oh, hi, Smee! Well, we miss you, but Dolly being spayed is important. Yeah, so gluing in the cork. This is something that I learned from Heather with her cool potion bottles, that you really, really do need to... Sorry, there's a random... My thumb is randomly orange, and I have no idea why. Oh, dear. Dolly was... Yeah. How preggo was Dolly? How's she doing? Just having gone through that with Mamie, I am ultra sympathetic over here. But yeah, so something that I learned from Heather is glue your corks into your bottles. So, oh dear. Yeah, Mamie was pretty preggo as well. From my own experience with Mamie, once Dolly has recovered from her surgery and the no longer being preggo, she's gonna be so much happier. I just have to say, like, Mamie, her personality, like, did a 180 after she got, say, 2 weeks past that. So now she's also a lot feistier and wants to murder all of the lizards and snakes. So watch out, lizards and snakes in San Antonio, because Dolly's gonna come and get ya in just a couple of weeks. Okay, so you can use 2-part epoxy, or I'm using my GS Hypo Cement. 2-part epoxy is a much better choice, but it also takes longer. So sometimes I'll take the shortcut of, I'm going to use my Hypo Cement, and I just kind of lined the inside of my little bottle with my Hypo Cement, and then I'm going to take my cork and I'm going to shove it the heck in there as far as it'll go. So the combination of, you know, shoving that cork in there as far as it'll go, plus the adhesive generally works pretty well. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my screw eye, which is, oh, hey, look, I actually pulled one out like a smart person. All right, so there's that. So once again, this little part here is thread. See, look, why is my thumb orange? I have no idea. This little part here is threaded, which the camera's really not showing you, but what I can do is I can take that little screw eye, and it's never a bad idea to drop a little bit of glue onto your screw eye as well. And then first you have to put your stylus back in your glue like so, and then you're going to take your screw eye, and when you've got something like cork that is malleable, you're just going to literally twist it and shove it in there, and there you go. Now this is one of those things where you don't want to try and put this on a necklace, bracelet, whatever, until you're 100% sure that the glue on both the cork and the screw eye has dried. So that's going to be about 10-15 minutes if you're using Hypo Cement. If you're using 2-part epoxy, that's going to be more like 24 hours. Okay, so getting to the end of the tutorial, and that means it is time for the power tools. Okay, so for things like a die, a mahjong tile, and a champagne cork, a die, a mahjong tile, and a champagne cork walk into a bar and say, I want to get drilled. Yeah, I'm just going to let you all, run with that one. When you're drilling things that you're going to use your screw eyes for, you want to make sure that your drill bit's not too big, which I have a feeling this one is. It's pretty fat. Haha, that's what I need. So, think of it like, I'm going to talk to you all while I change this. Also, I feel like my sale merchandise is about to just come crashing down. But, so, think about this like when you're drilling a hole, like drilling a pilot hole for a screw when you're doing some kind of home improvement project, is you want to make sure that your pilot hole is slightly smaller than the threaded object that's going to go into it. So in this case, I want to make sure that the hole I'm drilling is slightly smaller than the screw eye that I'm going to be putting into it. So now that I have a smaller drill bit, stuck. My little wrench is stuck. Okay, I'm not even kidding. This is not supposed to be the hard part of this, but okay, but seriously. Heather? I stuck. I don't know. How can I help? I honestly don't know, but the wrench is stuck on the Dremel. I don't know how you can help. I don't know if you can help. Welcome to the Beading Dream stream, y'all, where
do you need something to pry with?
Well, I have plenty of prying things. How did I do this? Is the question.
Magic?
I think, what's the opposite of magic?
Dumb luck?
Dumb. Dumb is the operative word here in this particular scenario. Okay, y'all, if I can't get this off of here, I can't show you how to drill things.
You can't just drill with a lot of extra worrying.
I mean, well, yes, but I'm afraid I'm gonna shoot my eye out.
Don't shoot your eye out.
We're gonna have a Christmas story thing happening.
Don't do that. That's fair.
And then all of a sudden, I'm gonna be in a bunny suit, and nobody's gonna know what's going on. What the? Really? Okay, seriously. It's really stuck on there, y'all. I feel like Corvus. I feel like I should have enough willpower to unstuck this with my sheer force of will. Sheer cussedness. I don't have enough cussedness. Well, it doesn't go that far because there. I'm lacking in cussedness. Does Heather have more cussedness than me? Is the question.
I'm going with no, but
I mean, you never know. You're Southern. I'm not. I'm Midwestern. Midwestern people are not known for cussedness. What you need?
well,
She says, boss lady, I need you not to have done this in the first place. Yeah, no,
if it I can get it go slightly sideways.
That's what she said?
Here, it's your problem now.
She's like, hey boss, guess what? I'm done trying to fix your mistakes.
I did my best.
You
Sorry.
did. I appreciate it. Okay, so what we're going to do at this particular moment is we're going to talk about the theory of drilling. Exactly, Lori. We're going to talk about the theory of drilling and how it should work. So, you're going to want... So, first of all, don't do this. I don't know how I did this, so I can't tell you how not to do this, but don't get your little wrench stuck on your Dremel. But, so, it's just like if you're drilling a pilot hole, is you want your drill bit to be slightly smaller than the thing for which you're drilling a hole, which in this case is going to be your screw eye. So I've got a bit that's, or I want to have a bit that's a little bit smaller than my screw eye. Right, seriously, Smee, I don't know. At this point, I'm giving up because it's already 7:08, so I'm giving up on this portion of the tutorial. And at some point, I'm going to need to figure out how to get this off so I can actually use this tool again. But so you want a drill bit that's slightly smaller than the thing you're drilling a hole for. If you're drilling all the way through something, chances are that your drill bit's not going to be long enough to drill all the way through in one go. So what you're going to need to do is mark the same place on both ends of your piece and drill from one side and then flip it over, drill from the other side, and in a perfect world your holes will meet in the middle. At that point, you've made whatever your object is into a bead, which means you can then use a head pin. Ta-ding! Probably a longer one than 2 inches to do a wire wrap loop on said bead that you have created, or you can, and this is what I was going to do with my die and my cork, you can also just drill a little bit into the top of the piece and then glue your screw eye into that small hole you've drilled. That's called half drilling. Oh, there's my die. And so, like with my die here, what I would do if I had a functional drill is I would drill a little bit into that corner right there, basically the equivalent of the depth of my screw eye, and then I would put a little glue in, and then I would screw my screw eye in, same if I was doing my champagne cork. So and you can do this with, it doesn't have to be a Dremel, it can be a flex shaft, it can be a Dremel, it can literally be a regular like drill like you would use for home improvement projects. This is not precision drilling, so you know, you can really use a whole lot of different things, but the main thing that's going to be an issue if you're using a household drill is that the tinier drill bits, the chuck on your household drill doesn't always, oh goodness, I don't have time to name 20 actresses Scooby-Doo 73 because I need to get off and get ready for my live merchandise sale that happens in 30 minutes. So I'm going to continue what I was saying with the tutorial, which was if you are going to use a household drill for this, excuse me, you may have to get a special chuck. Chuck being the piece that holds the drill bit that actually goes down small enough to hold the small drill bits that you need to drill holes that are slightly smaller than your screw eyes. Also, you may need to go to a jeweler's supply or a hobby website rather than like a home improvement store to get your drill bits, because once again, you need smaller drill bits that than typically one can find at the home improvement store. Typically the smallest you can find at the home improvement store is like 1/16 of an inch, and which is equivalent to, I believe, a number 52 drill bit. And if you're using kind of your average screw eyes that you can get off of the internet, you're going to need something closer to a number 56 drill bit or even smaller, and those you really can't find at the home improvement stores. So you would need to go to either a jeweler supply or a hobby supplier for those. So with unfortunately a little bit of malfunction happening, but we still have successfully created charms from 4 found objects. We were going for 6, but we got 4. 4 out of 6 ain't bad. So we had jump rings in a hole that already exists in your item, head pins in a hole that already exists in your item, little bottles with glue and screw eyes, and buttons with wire on the back. And that is the end of our how to create charms from found objects tutorial. Sorry, I didn't get to the drilling. I'm gonna go ahead and say fate was not on my side in that, but thank y'all so much for tuning in for this particular tutorial. I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. Of course, we are an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. We're here on Lovers Lane in Dallas, and we're here to feed your need to bead in person Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. If you're not local in Dallas, you can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, 5 times a week with complimentary tutorials, and we're running reruns now thanks to Ace, so yay! Thanks, Lori. So we stream complimentary tutorials Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, plus Thursdays at noon. That means I'll be back for another tutorial on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, tomorrow at noon for the thimble pendant. Yes, I will be taking a thimble and making it into an actual bell. It's going to involve drilling, which means I need to fix my drill. Hi, Twisted Sock! You have missed the tutorial stream, but we'll be back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, with a live merchandise sale in just 30 minutes. That's going to be around 7:45. I've got crystals for you tonight, plus some rando strandos for $5. So you missed the tutorial, but you have not missed the sale. I am going to log off in just a minute to get ready for the sale, get everything together. So we'll be back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, in 30 minutes, right around 7:45 p.m. Central Time, with a live merchandise sale. I hope each and every one of you will join us then. If you are not going to join us for the sale, thanks for hanging out for the tutorial, even if it was just for a couple of minutes, and hopefully we'll see you on another stream really, really soon. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.
Real. It's facts.
You check the link in my bio.
ASL.
Oh, you're a rapper? I might even send you a free tryout. How does that sound?
ASL. Hey. Fuck you dancing for, you looking lame as hell. Facts. For this bitch on time, cause I don't take no L. Facts. Met this white bitch on Omegle, she said ASL. Facts. I don't do relationships, they lame as hell. Facts. One bitch all I need for the week. If it's over, then it's over. Bitch, it doesn't bother me. Smoking green like Louise, and my rack's so fucking big. Every time I check and see, I think that money is obese. It's fat, and for real, big money.